Welcome to the Tribe of the Restored Warrior podcast, where coming home changed doesn't mean you're broke.
Welcome to another episode of the Tribe of the Restored Warrior. I'm Justin, joined by Dr. Ben Iobst. Today we're going to be discussing when one door closes, another door opens. And one thing to remember that when one door closes, another one opens, and that equals transition and empowerment, and staying aware of new possibilities when these doors close.
Absolutely. I know in my life, there have been a lot of times when either due to my own behavior or, due to not really being totally together, really stuck in my own PTSD, stuck in my own crap in a lot of ways. I didn't initially recognize that, when something changed, when there was a transition, that it wasn't like a door slamming shut in my life. It might have been the conclusion of a chapter and a whole new chapter was beginning. A good example of that for me is when I got out of the military and I was a young police officer. I was one of those guys that was, tactical as all hell, right? That was my direction. Kicking doors. I didn't want to talk, I wanted to be out there catching bad guys. And over the course of, my recovery journey, as time went on, I started to get more and more interested in how the human mind works, how we process things. And what ended up happening was, again, what I thought was a door closing. I thought, I'm starting to get into my older years and that's it, right? Ride's over. No more badassery for me, And what it really turned into was an entire new chapter in my life, learning how to negotiate, learning how to do crisis intervention work, learning how to talk people off of a bridge, And man, did that open stuff up, because I viewed it originally as something that was work related. Like, how do I accomplish a mission? Right? How do I accomplish a mission, which is getting this person to not want to kill themselves and instead turn themselves into us, right? But then that transition, and I started realizing, wait a minute, these skill sets are useful for the veteran and first responder community. Like, if I can talk somebody off of a bridge, or I can talk somebody out of killing their loved ones and themselves in some hostage situation, why can't we use this for each other? And that kind of really made me seek out more vets and first responders with that same type of mentality, that we can use all these skills that we've developed, not just for aggressive things, right? But for also taking care of each other. And, boy, did that open up another door.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, fast forward, a decade and a half, almost 2 decades now, I'd go back to school, get a doctorate, all these other things. None of that was in my sights back then. If you would have told the young 20-something-year-old version of me who, was trying to find ways to hide more knives on his uniform, just in case, that fast forward in time, I would be, a doctor helping first responders and veterans to take care of themselves, wouldn't have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But those new possibilities, they were there and I just didn't notice them. And really what helped me see that was other vets and first responders saying, hey, why don't you try this out? Why don't you try that out? And developing an open mentality to be able to see those things as they came along. So I think it's really important to think through, like, just because a door closes does not mean that the ride's over. And sometimes even the bad stuff can be that beginning of a new possibility. I can't tell you how many people I've run into that said, getting in trouble, was what showed them that they needed to start going in a direction. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think, turn these things on our head is important. I know from my experience with things that a lot of doors closed on me. And in the moment, I didn't have the skills to really see what it was. If we're going to use an example, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I thought I was going to become a police officer, and it just didn't work out. And I'm kind of grateful for that, because I don't think my mentality was in a good spot at that point in time. I don't think I would have done a good job with things, because I was not healthy. And seeing things going the way that they go for a reason took a lot of practice for me. I had to learn a little bit of patience, and the only way I was able to learn patience was to be impatient with things and get tired of being impatient. So I think what you're talking about is really, really powerful and on point.
Yeah. I mean, yours is a great example of that. You are now working directly with police agencies, almost as a, if we review it in a military perspective, almost like a warrant officer, right? You come in, you're specialists who helps police agencies get that's first responders, people that are struggling with drugs and alcohol, specialized treatment so that they don't end up in these horrific situations. And I don't, having been in the police world, it's very unlikely that you would have been able to become what the valuable person you are now from, within the structure of policing, because there's a whole process to it, right? And it wouldn't have come with learning the skill sets that you learn. So just a totally different, new, awesome possibility that came out of what, probably seemed like a closed door.
Right.
Yeah. Some things we have to think about. A lot of people are probably, anybody listening is probably like, well, how do you do that? Right. Other than time. We can practice these skill sets, right? We can practice these skill sets, one, by practicing pause. So instead of reacting right away when we think that a door closes in our face, a no, that's a big one. We apply for a job and we get told no, right? And what do we want to do? We want to react. Who do you think you are? Do you know what I've been through, what I've done? All that stuff starts to come out. But pause, and let's take a look at what opportunities, what possibilities does this open up for us? Also inventory our strengths, right? Talk with our brothers and sisters and figure out what we're good at and where we can put that to work. Because what we might be applying for, what we might be trying to get into, might be something we tried to get into impulsive. We didn't think through the fact that there were all these other strengths that we have that maybe we're not applying for professionally. And the other area is that transition. And there's 3 types of transitions that really get us from the warrior community. One is that career transition, right? Ending one type of career, whether it be getting out of the military, getting out of first responder work, whether by choice, but through retirement, or sometimes not by choice, right? We're getting medicaled out of the military or our chosen profession in the first responder world. And that can be tough. But again, pausing, remembering that this may be the next chapter starting, and connecting, not isolating, because what's usually going to show us what those next opportunities are the people around us. Think about the groups that we run. I mean, how many guys have we seen that came in, they thought their career's over, it's the end of the world. They start getting around other healthy first responders and veterans, and all of a sudden they're seeing opportunities, right? They're seeing, how many guys we got into their next career, Yeah, absolutely. What else can you think of? Like, what type of example, from your own life can you think of where that really, really comes into play?
The transition of things, I would say, my history with addiction would be one. Coming out of that, eventually finding recovery and utilizing that experience and those skills to help people in recovery, find recovery. Now, using the skills I learned in the Marine Corps to connect with veterans, connect with first responders, try to help guide them, share some of my experience with them.
Yeah, who would have thought? I mean, would you have thought, in 2000, go back 10 years, 11 years, would you have thought that the experiences that you were having were going to be a superpower, for helping people?
Absolutely not. I thought the game was over.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was the end of days for me. And like you're saying, here we are a couple years later, and we've turned that on its head. We've turned that into an asset.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, running back through it, pause, don't react, take time to respond. Second is get around healthy first responders and vets, because they're probably going to see things from a perspective that you may not be able to see it from. And the other thing is stay in motion, moving in the positive direction, right? Let's not get stuck in staring backwards at the negative, right? And let's sure not start engaging in the negative, moving towards that. Let's stay in motion, moving forward towards that positive. Be purposeful about what we're doing, right? Good example there is, what are we putting in, right? If we want to be healthy, what are we putting into ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
We're eating positive, healthy food, right? We're exercising. Same thing with the mind, right? We need to make sure that we are seeking out positive things to put into our mind, not getting stuck in, in negative distractions. A little bit here and there, not a problem, right? You want to get on TikTok and, watch some entertaining videos, do you, right? But let's not make that a full-time thing, right? Focus on, I've got to also feed my good side. I've got to make sure that I'm exercising my mental wellness. Yeah.
Good to go. So in that, we're going to close this episode out. The best thing I could say is, just because doors closed doesn't mean anything's over. It could be a chapter opening up. We just don't see it yet. So with that, thanks for listening to another episode of the Tribe of the Restored Warrior. Tribe of the Restored Warrior works in collaboration, contributes to Vets and Badges, where real-life heroes share their trials and tribulations. Please check out www.vetsandbadges.com for more information.